70% of all gold production in the U.S. comes from a single state, Nevada. Conventional wisdom says that all the good deposits have been found. But one geologist who's discovered more than 30 million ounces of gold says he knows where to find Nevada's missing gold. And right now, he may be on the verge of being proven right. Investors and speculators can learn more at futuremoneytrends.com/gold. Greetings and thank you for joining us at futuremoneytrends.com. I'm here with a very special guest today. We're going to talk about gold. We're going to talk about the global economy, what's going on in Europe, as well as specifically some interesting facts and notes that I think everybody will be interested in to learn about Switzerland. Claudio Grass is with Global Gold, the Swiss solution for precious metal investors. You can learn about him and his company and read his articles at globalgold.ch. He is an advocate of free market economics and the libertarian way, nonviolent, voluntary philosophy. Claudio, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Daniel, thank you very much for having me.
Now, is Global Gold, is this your company or do you work for the company?
Global Gold, I'm the managing director of Global Gold. So I started working with them in 2011. And since then, the company has been founded back in 2008. But, we never used, credits. So we did the whole development by ourselves. And so between 2008 and 2011, the owner of the company established all the structures, and then in 2011 I basically took over as a managing director.
I see.
And since then I'm heading that company. But it's like Global Gold is really like also my baby, and I have a lot of freedom, to develop the company further, and my boss and we have the same mindset. So it's a good combination.
All right, great. Well, I want to get into Global Gold and the Swiss storage and what you guys offer. But before I do, we were just having a great conversation prior to the me hitting record about Switzerland. So let me catch the audience up. And the perception in the United States is that Switzerland is almost like a utopia. However, most people who would describe it as a utopia, especially just in a recent debate where people were saying the U.S. should be more like a Switzerland, but what they don't know is Switzerland, everybody is armed, everybody has guns there, and what you were just telling me, something that I didn't know, that there really is no centralized government at all in Switzerland. So if you're of the libertarian philosophy. So if you could just share with us some of the things that Switzerland has done right, and that might even be a model for future libertarian governments, and then also some of the negatives of Switzerland, because I'm guessing your tax rate is rather high. Is it?
Yeah. I mean, of course, let's answer your initial questions. I think the good stuff about Switzerland is definitely the way it is structured, because we are still a federalistic country. So meaning Switzerland consists of 26 states. We call it over here cantons, and those states, they have always been responsible for taxation, for education, for healthcare. All these kinds of stuff has been decided on a municipality or even on a state level. But we never had a centralized government in the past, which was taking over a lot of stuff or trying to centralize the power. And because of these structures, still today, the best is that the power is still limited of the politicians, because our politicians are not better than the rest of the world. But they don't have as much power because of that structure. And I think that's still one of the key arguments. The negative aspect is that, of course, Switzerland is heavily under pressure from all different sides. I've seen that since the financial crisis, especially 2008. That we got the reputation that we were taking in all the money, from all the dictators and so on, because we are also the last remaining direct democracy. So we are, in a way, competing with the rest of the world, which is becoming more totalitarian. in my point of view. We are surrounded by the European Union, and of course, when I look over the Atlantic into the United States, I mean, even I think it was Princeton University who came up with a study about 1 year ago that America is not a democracy. It's an oligarchy. So we can see that you have a massive centralization of power already for a long time, of course, but now it's getting more visible. So Switzerland is really under pressure because it's really my understanding that we are in competition with our model against the rest of the world, and as long as the people out there don't hear how easy the Switzerland has been structured, what does it mean, direct democracy. Let me give you an example for that. We have, for example, here in Switzerland, we have right now, we are collecting signatories, 100,000 signatories by the Swiss people, because we want to abandon government propaganda. So what does it mean? We have a Swiss TV station, radio station. So the Swiss government TV stations and radio stations are dominating, the whole information channel here in Switzerland, and we are forced to pay them 1.3 billion on an annual basis, which we cannot, even if you look it or you listen to it or you don't listen to it, everyone has to pay for it. And so we came up 2 years ago, or let's say some people who has been inspired by some free market and libertarian ideas, that we could try to abolish that, and that's right now what we are doing. I mean, I think this is something which you can't find in other countries, and then if we get the 100,000 signatories, basically in a year or maybe in a year and a half, we're going to have that the people, the politicians have to bring that vote in front of the people, and then all the Swiss people can vote yes or no, but they can determine their destiny when it comes to should we accept, are we interested in government propaganda or not?
Now, in the different states, now just to be clear, is there a national leader like the president or a prime minister, or is there not even that in Switzerland?
You don't have in the state. I mean, we have. When we look at the taxation, I think that's the most important point. When you look at how much, out of the 100% of taxes the Swiss people have to pay, basically we can say that the biggest part goes to the municipality or the city-state, for example, they are living in. So,
your local government.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I live in the canton of Zug, which is a very tax low jurisdiction or a state. So I would say there we have 60% are going to the municipality, and roughly 30% to the canton, to the state, and then we have 10% that's all over the Switzerland the same, which goes to the centralized government. I mean they also get their fair share, and that's also the problem we have, because centralized government, the guys in Bern, they're trying to grip more power. But we have elections next week over here, and as far as we can see, is that we have a shift towards more so-called right wing. Also, I believe the definition of being left and right is completely nonsense, because for me, on the total left, we have a totalitarian state, and there can be red, brown, black, fascism, socialism, nationalism. Basically, few people deciding, about the flavor and how the rest of the people have to act. And on the right-hand side, we have, more people oriented towards the culture, tradition, conservatives, and on the very right side, anarchy in a way. This is absolutely freedom. So we're going to see, that we're going to have that shift, and I'm really wondering, how much the People Party of Switzerland is going to win, which is crucial also in my point of view. I mean, as I said, there is a lot of pressure on Switzerland, and of course, politicians, bureaucrats, they love to increase their power, and they would love to be a bit more involved with all their counterparties in Brussels and so on.
Yeah, you got
the Swiss people. Yeah,
got to keep the governments in a small cage, and then weld the lock shut. For the guns, this is something that a lot of people don't know. Because everybody has this perception that there's no guns in Europe almost, but I believe that's not the case at all. And Switzerland specifically, everybody has a gun. I imagine that's a big cost saver too, that you guys don't have a military running around occupying, over 100 different countries with military bases. So everybody has a gun, and these are not small guns, right? These are the real deal. These are military level weapons.
Yeah, that comes from the historical part. When we have a militia system when it comes to our army. So everyone basically has to go to the Swiss army as a young guy, and traditionally they were always allowed to take their arms at home when they finished their conscript service and so on, because of the main idea was always that when Switzerland is under pressure and they have to defend the borders, for example, there's an enemy coming, that the people would have at least their personal weapon, their personal rifle, automatic rifle at home, so that we could mobilize in a very short period of time. And at the same time, we have a lot of people that just love shooting. We have a lot of shooting booths, so there is, it's also a little bit part of our culture. And of course, I'm following, the discussions you have over there in the United States. When you have these attacks on the schools, where you have a few crazy guys coming in shooting the children. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's an absolute catastrophe. But I'm personally, I believe, it's important that the people can arm. That they are armed, because if you would live, in an arm-free society, or in a room without where it's not allowed that the normal people can bear arms. I mean, everyone except criminals would most likely deal with that. And I'm sure that then also the criminal rate would increase, because the criminals then know, okay, they don't have an arm because they're not allowed. So we would have much more break-ins, and that most likely will be the outcome. And at the same time, I mean, I always believe, arms is not the cause. Using arm violently is a symptom of a society which is, going down the drain, losing ethnical values, losing, I mean, you have so many. America, is fighting on a global scale for such a long time. I think you have 1,000 military bases in almost 70 nations, and you have been, in war. I don't know, since I think Korea was the first officially. So and then I hear, when I see that you send your 19, 18 years guys, which are not allowed to drink alcohol, but at the same time they're allowed to go somewhere and to shoot people. I think those guys, they are really, when they come back, they are really damaged, because what they experience in Afghanistan or Iraq and so on, I think it has a strong impact on such young people. And I think that's also why the suicide rate amongst the military members is 25% as far as I know.
There's a strong conditioning for nationalism here too, and the sense that all of our wars were the good guys, that we're just simply out there trying to save the world from itself. So there's a real strong sense of nationalism, and that goes in. It's ingrained in our churches in the U.S. It's ingrained in all of our entertainment. And if you go into any toy store where you're going to buy a child, a gift or something, it's there's entire sections, almost the entire toy section, and just where it's all about fighting and military grade type things. They even sell like police now with like SWAT uniforms, and they've got their battering ram tanks and stuff like that. So it is part of the nationalism, that the whole thing with the war, always fighting, always doing something to bomb the bad guys. Bush, our previous president, used to call people who were quite annoyed with the U.S. because we were over there, evil doers. So it's always a good versus bad. But yeah, with the gun violence, so you don't hear about it too much in Switzerland. Now, what's your population? We got about 320 million people here.
Yeah, we are 8 million people. And we have 4 different official languages. We have a French-speaking part, we have Italian-speaking part, German-speaking part, and then we also have Romanish, which is a Latin language. So we have an extremely diversified culture, traditions. We have the influence from the Italian part, the French part, the German part, and so on. And I think that was also key was, because of the federalistic structures, the French were left alone to do, what they wanted, what the people wanted to do, and how they wanted to have this education system and so on. And I think that was always the key for the successful development of our nation. To have, because we understand, and this is still in our genes. Innovation and success is not coming when everything is centralized. It's basically the basis must be diversity. Different talents.
Now, the Swiss have probably the best reputation when it comes to safe storage of assets, whether that's a Swiss bank account or storing something at a Swiss bank. And they also have a strong reputation of having a safe haven currency. In the current environment, is that still true?
I think there we have to distinguish between, the banking system and outside the banking system. I think also history, recent history is a proof that when it comes to the banking system, that Switzerland is also not excluded. When we take the example of UBS, for example, when in 2008, the message to the Swiss people was, okay, UBS, is having liquidity problems and it's going down the drain if you don't bail them out. And so the politicians were able in such a scenario to jump in and to break our constitution. But they, of course, they sold it to the people by saying, hey, if we don't do it, then, Switzerland is going to face a huge recession. So that just shows, it gives the politicians, as long as in the system, some more power. And then we had the example with the Wegelin Bank, the oldest private bank in Switzerland. And they just have been threatened, that they will be kicked out of the SWIFT system, which is dominated by, definitely Western and American interests. And, if you're a bank and you're not part any longer of the payment system, and then you're gone. So that's why I believe, we have to distinguish between banking system, and we also gave away our banking secrecy that has been broken, in a very stupid way by our politicians, because the banking secrecy was never there to protect money launderer or criminals. It was really there and implemented back in the 30s, that we can that the individual is going to be protected from an overwhelming state. So, to protect the privacy and so on. Of course, when I see what UBS did, they went to the States and they actively promoted tax evasion and so on. So I think that was the most stupid thing. Question is always, UBS is employing more American, has more employees in the United States than in Switzerland. So I don't consider UBS and Credit Suisse as Swiss banks, because they both also have a primary dealer status from the Federal Reserve.
Is Switzerland, I know we haven't got to the currency part, but is Switzerland still a safe haven right now for like billionaires and the world's wealthiest and the world's, whether they're dictators or good guys? Is it still seen as that? Is it still being used by people who have a lot of wealth to store their wealth in Switzerland?
Yeah, we have, since 2008, we had a lot of, the big money came back to Switzerland because, first of all, it's still, we are a stable economy. We are not that much indebted. It's not a totalitarian system. So, still, the politicians, they don't have that much power. So that still gives Switzerland, because of the decentralization, because of political stability, because of an economy that is still working and low debts, official debts. We have a national bank and they printed money like crazy. That's a different story. But overall, Switzerland is, if you compare it with other countries on that planet, I think it's still one of the best jurisdictions you can have because of stability. And also the Swiss people, we're always extremely international, so we know different cultures, different markets, and we have a high service culture, and we are very accurate. You can trust the Swiss in general. When you close a deal, then the deal is kept, and there are no politicians who can interfere and so on. Except for, what I just mentioned before. When it comes to the problems we are facing because of America putting, more and more pressure, and then of course also the European Union, and and these guys, they are so crazy because when taxpayers are leaving the country, anyway, then you have to do something in your country. You cannot steal everything. Look in Germany, I think you give away 75% of your income when you do all the calculations, and so 100%. And we are talking about slavery.
Horrible.
But, yeah, it's crazy. But let's save storage. Let's say outside the banking system, and I think that's really a key point, because and I think that's also one of the unique selling propositions of global gold, because when somebody is moving money over here, and then we are buying on his behalf physical precious metals, and we store it outside the banking system. Everything is done under Swiss jurisdiction, so it's his private property. It's not kept in the banking system. And at the same time, let's assume our politicians would come up and say, okay, now we have to confiscate gold. They cannot do it because they don't have the power. So they, even if they would come up, then we basically would have gather 50,000 or maybe 30,000 signatories to bring it in front of the people, and then the people have to decide if they would follow, the government by confiscating metals or not. And when I look, what kind of suggestions our political elite has brought up in the last few years, they lost most of them. So, the Swiss people, they are sensibilized. They don't like centralized government. They don't like presidents. They don't like kings. That's still in their genes, that we are, also individuals and not basically a state. And I think this is why I still believe in Switzerland, and that's why we're also here. And that's why I don't see a problem, with confiscation, because politicians, they don't have the power. They could block the banking system, of course, block the banks. That's a different story. But if it's kept outside in AAA high security storage facilities, not linked with banks, I don't see a problem for, then it's still a safe haven.
Well, I imagine it would be like a national suicide to do that anyway, because if the government confiscated gold, then every billionaire in the world would get their money the hell out of Switzerland, and that would not be good for the economy. You just talked about the voting. So the Swiss people, they rejected backing the currency with a portion of gold. Why do you think they did that? Because it was kind of surprising to a lot of people, because it goes back to the idea and the perception and the belief that the Swiss currency is a safe haven currency. The Swiss people are very sensible. Why did they reject that, you think?
I was following, of course, the whole initiative for the gold backing, and what I witnessed, at the beginning when we came up, or when this initiative came up, there was hardly any discussion, because when we think back, back in 1999, we had up to 1999, we had 40% gold backing in our constitution. And then in 1999, the central bankers asked our Swiss politicians, is it possible to decrease that and go to zero and sell all the gold? And then the politicians saying, no, you cannot do that, because then we would have to change the constitution. The maximum you can do is, we can reduce it to 25%. And that's what they did in 1999. And then in 2001, they sent out, in a short period of time, a document to all the Swiss people and told them, listen, we have to change the constitution, we have to modernize it a bit, and there was not a single word about that they are going to take out the gold backing out of the constitution. And because we also have, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a government, a state propaganda, and that's what I have witnessed. Because at the beginning there was no discussion, and then we tried, through the social medias and so on, we built up groups and we tried to spread the information and educate the people what it's all about. And so then there was a first poll, what they usually do, I think 4 or 6 weeks before, or 8 weeks before the vote. And I think 46% of the Swiss, or 40% of the Swiss, were in favor of the gold backing. And against were, I think, 28 or something, but it was a clear advantage for the guys, seeing gold as money. And then everything started. I mean, then really, I was tracking media articles. There was one article which was positive in an ocean of articles, hundred articles in all different newspapers, in all different radio stations, and on all the TV shows. Everyone was basically fighting against gold, telling it's such a bullshit. It's going to destroy Switzerland. Even the head of our central bank, which usually is not allowed to be part in a political process, he also held speeches. So the establishment really became extremely worried that this initiative could pass, and they were able within this 8 weeks basically to destroy the opinion of the people through propaganda, and that's why
amazing.
That's why and at the same time, of course, you only have, because in Switzerland, everything is fine. Everyone still feels, it's okay. They don't see, the huge bubble we have. We have a very low unemployment rate. We are still, officially, I think it's around 3.5%. Okay, then we also have government programs, etc., which is hidden somewhere. So most likely we are closer to 7 or 8%. But if you lose the job here in Switzerland, then you can earn up to $8,000 a month. That's the maximum, which you get, paid by the government if you lose a job. So I mean, even there, you can see. I mean, it's if the people are happy with the status quo, and then you have a massive propaganda, and you still believe somehow in the government, it has a lot of impact, and that's what they were able to achieve. And the people thought, okay, I don't want to damage, the status quo because everything is uncertain, and that's why that's why we lost, when it comes to that initiative.
On back to the gold storage and versus a bank versus a private company like Global Gold. If somebody had a judgment against an American, let's say even the IRS, which is our tax collecting agency, had a judgment against an American, can they do anything through the political channels or whatever, legal channels, I guess? Can they do anything to confiscate that gold, either in a private vault or a bank vault?
Let's assume in the bank vault anyway. I think what I also need to say is, clients we have, they understand gold. They share our big picture. We have conservatives, we have libertarians, we have entrepreneurs, and so really good people, which also fit, they also believe sound money for a sound society, and they see what's going on. So for them, it's really the harsh crisis scenario. And so we don't have people who want to trade on a regular basis, speculators, for example. We don't have traders who try to hide something in physical gold. Also, that's why whenever we had American client already in the last 3 years, and they had an offshore account, they always had to send us an FBAR. They always had to prove us that the money has been declared, because the biggest threat for our wealth are bankrupt governments, and because of the fact that banks are communicating, they have this automatic information exchange. I think it's impossible to hide anything. I think these days are really gone. So that's why I think that's key. If you decide to move into physical gold and to move outside the banking system, you must have the right motivation to do so. And let's assume if the Americans would come, they could never approach Global Gold directly, even not the IRS. They would have to go through our government system, and if they would be able to prove that there is a terrorist involved and so on, or that he did something wrong, which then would qualify also under Swiss law as a crime, then they would succeed. Most likely, then they would brought to court, and then we would receive an information request, most likely from the Financial Market Authority. But as long this is not the case, as long as we don't have the wrong clients, then it's not a problem at all.
So really, it's just a matter of if you're not breaking laws, and especially if you're not breaking laws that aren't laws in Switzerland, then the gold is safe. I guess the big concern would be, let's say somebody got in trouble for some type of tax law here in the States where the government was trying to go after you. And I think the most important thing with gold ownership, is that it is outside the banking system, and you kind of just want to have this gold, and you don't want to have to worry about it. So storing it in Switzerland, you don't trust storing it in Texas or Utah. You've gone the extra mile. You've sent it to a very reputable country. You're sending it to a private bullion vault, and you just want to protect it. If somebody wants to sell their gold, is that pretty easy to do with you guys? Let's say they want to. They've got, let's say, 50 grand, 60 grand in the vault worth of gold. Can you guys sell the order and then wire them the money back to the States?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to say, the way we are operating is we really operate in an old-fashioned way. So meaning, we don't allow online trading. We consider the internet as a potential threat. So that's why we don't want to have, we want to communicate and to be able to operate even when the internet would be down, because this is really, global goal is all about a harsh crisis scenario. When the banking system goes down, when the monetary system goes down, when you even might have, no internet connection. So people still, they can pass by, they can send us, okay, if there is regular mail still going, they can communicate with this, they can send us an email. We have all the documentations basically on our database, which is clearly separated from the internet, and at the same time we store everything in paper. So if something would happen, and whenever we do a transaction on behalf of a client, we have at least 4 to 6 processes, so that that there is no mistakes and that we control each other. But we still pick up the phone, we place the trade, and then basically we issue a transaction confirmation. It's a PDF, we upload it on the internet. It's a one-way communication, and then we would wire the funds if you would sell metals. So we have institutional rates, a very good partner network. We're dealing with Swiss refineries, and of course when it comes to coins, with the big wholesalers. But we don't pre-finance. We don't hedge, we don't pledge, we don't have our own stock. So we try to avoid all those little things which will make a difference in a harsh crisis scenario.
What about delivery? What if I want the gold what if it's stored there for 3 years and I want the gold at my house? Do you guys offer that?
Absolutely. Can be done at any time. I mean, of course, it depends on the jurisdiction. Sometimes it's pretty hard. Latin America, for example, certain countries can be a problem. But United States, I mean, okay, I don't understand if somebody would want to have the metals back in the States, but we do that also. I mean, we had that occasionally in the past as well. Yeah. But there we are working with a specialized logistic company. So that can all, people can pick it up at any time. What we need, we were saying, give us 48 hours in advance information so that you can organize the security procedures at the storage facility. They can at any time ask for physical delivery. And then, we find out what's the most convenient way. Can we do it, with DHL, for example, or do we have to do it with armed transports? So, depending on where we have to deliver. If it's for a private address, then we have to use DHL, but that can only be up to 75,000, for example. You have certain limits. And if, the amount is higher, and you don't want to have, an armed transport in front of your private building, so then we just have to find out, can we bring it, to a boat? Can we bring it to a legal entity where the client is waiting, and then that can be done. No problem.
Claudio, you said your clients and Global Gold have a big picture, I guess, belief in what is going to happen in the global economy. If you could share with us what is yours and Global Gold's big picture as far as why is gold ownership important? And most of the people listening to the show are going to know that answer. So I'm really looking for, what do you think is kind of going to happen in the economy that makes gold ownership important?
Okay, I mean, the only answer you have to ask yourself is basically, is it possible to print wealth, money out of nothing? If this would be the case, then we could hand out $1 million to you personally, on an annual basis, and you can live a happy life. But we all know that this is not possible. But we are doing this extremely since 1971, since 15th of August, when Nixon closed down the gold window. And we also already did in the past, but when you look at the total debt which has been created, I mean, let's say the 18 trillions in the United States, official debt, is, I think 98% has been accumulated since 1971. And now it's just going exponentially. And of course, the official debt is 18 trillion. The unfunded liabilities, all the promises by the government and so on, healthcare, pension funds, is, as per Professor Kotlikoff from Boston University, 220 trillion. And that's everywhere the same. So this means, this system is going to crash. One fine day, either we're going to see a deflationary collapse, because I still believe, these guys, central bankers, they have nothing under control. They just know, we are living in a centralized system, so of course they have some influence. But, either we're going to have a deflationary collapse, that's most likely what they try to avoid, then they rather prefer to print it all the time, or we're going to see a hyperinflation where, paper money goes to intrinsic value, which is zero. And we're also going to see, all the propped up and manipulated markets right now when you get money for free, and all that stuff is going into the financial markets, into real estate, into government bonds, when that stuff is, even here in Switzerland, you can buy a government bond for 10 years and you have to pay the government money that you can borrow them money. So it's absolutely insane.
That is insane. That is true insanity right there. I don't know why anybody would do that.
It's, I always call it, on the one way, you were talking about conditioning before, and I think that's a very good point, because when I look at, for example, the educational system, the American educational system changed, around 1930, 1940 heavily, and they took over some ideas which have been, being put together by Wilhelm Wundt. He was a psychologist, an experimental psychologist in Germany, and he always thought, when a child is born, it has no free will and it has no self-determination. A child is basically like an animal, and we can stimulate it, and we will get the reaction. And that's so they tried, all what we are doing also. Also here in Germany and Switzerland, all the public education system taken over by government is mainly a system which has been made for animals. And so we are indoctrinating and conditioning our children, since they are, 6 and 7. And of course that has a huge impact. So today I call this system always, it's collective corruption, in a way. You have some people, they realize what's going on, and I think these are also the guys which are taking the steps. But when we look at the physical gold market, I would say in the Western world is maybe 0.4%, 0.5% of all the people which own physical gold, and the other 99.5%, they never thought about it. They are just conditioned in a nice way. They believe. Also Wundt was, the state is the superior, and the individual has no is worthless and has no meaning. And I think that all has an impact. So that the people don't realize, or they don't want to hear, they don't want to see what's going on, because you have a real estate, you have a mortgage, so far you have a job, you don't have time to think about fundamental things, because otherwise you're going to lose your job. So you have to, like the mouse in the spinning wheel, some people are saying they're going up how do you say I forgot the name in English, sorry.
Do the people in Switzerland? Let's talk outside of your clients who are outside of Switzerland. Some of them, but the people you talk to who know about economics are knowledgeable. You said the Swiss people themselves are very knowledgeable about international affairs and cultures and news. Is there any belief that the U.S. is in danger, or Japan, or Europe? Or here in the States, I can tell you, even the experts that are, on our own national propaganda channels that are owned by the oligarchs, you don't really hear of the crisis outside of you got your lone wolves out there, your Peter Schiffs who make it on TV occasionally, your Rick Rules, but it really, for the most part, or Ron Paul, like we talked earlier, but for the most part, the idea of a crisis is so far out of anyone's mind. It's simply not there. When it comes to the Swiss people or the people who have money that you speak with, do people look at the U.S. and look at Japan and say, "Hey, we've got a problem"?
Yeah, I mean that's when we talk about the professional intellectuals, which are somehow linked, with government university, or which are the advisors from a government perspective. Of course, those guys, they still they just talk about the system. It might go up. It's like kind of little boom bust, and we're not going to have a problem. And even the politicians, they don't get it. But when you talk to the people on the streets in Switzerland, that's always funny, I mean, and they don't need to understand economics. Maybe they never heard about Austrian economics, for example, but they just feel, that something is going wrong, and they also feel that what's happening right now, and that the central banks are just printing money. They understand that this is impossible. I mean, they understand that it's not possible that you can spend more than what you earn. And today, I mean, it's so completely, it has so decoupled from reality what's going on that a lot of people are realizing, hey, they have the feeling they don't know exactly what it is, but they really feel worried about the future. And of course, when we see what's happening right now in Europe with the refugee crisis, I mean, that also has, of course, a strong and huge impact. And at the same time, Middle East and all the stories, unfortunately, a lot of people don't like, the American. I mean, unfortunately, they don't like the American government because of all the foreign interference interventions they are doing, and fighting wars for decades now. So they don't understand it, And
yeah, it's so normalized here. I'll never forget. I was with some people that I'm friends with, and some of my other friends had come from Israel, and of course, the Americans were asking the Israelis, because they found out they were in the military. They met each other in the military, and they said, "Where did you go?" And the Israeli was like, "What do you mean?" And the American is like, "Well, where'd you go? Where'd you go to Africa? Did you go to China? Where'd you go?" And he's like, "I went to Israel. We didn't go anywhere. We defended our borders." And because in America, you join the military, and they almost fantasize about this. You're going to travel the world because it's a given. You join the military and you're getting sent off somewhere else.
Yeah.
Claudio Grass of Global Gold. If you want to learn more about him, his company, the Swiss Solution for Precious Metal Investors, go to globalgold.ch. Now, we did not get a chance to get into a lot of the questions, almost all the questions I had, but we had a great conversation about Switzerland, as well as some of the perceptions Americans have, and it was nice hearing it from a fellow libertarian. So, Claudio, thank you so much. Let's have you on the show in, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks, and we'll get more into the economy, the current move in gold, and what the Fed is doing. But that was a great conversation. I look forward to posting this, and thank you so much for your time, sir.
Daniel, it was a pleasure also for me. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to have another chat with you. And thank you so much.